Welcome to the Starting Over Podcast. I'm your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show where we talk about the strategies, tactics, and mechanics of the game of heroclix. It's the end of the year. I'm in Kansas City. I have my camera. I recorded Christmas. I'm with two of my good friends, so please introduce yourselves.
I'm Seth Davis. How's it going?
I'm Joshua Johnson. I'm on HC Realms frequently as Mega Lotus Man.
Yeah, so he's Mega Lotus Man. So there we go. So we're sort of doing a year in review, talking about things that we thought were good this year, things that we thought were bad or in between. So let's start talking about, because we were talking about this before we started. Let's talk about Master Mold. They revealed Master Mold, and they haven't shown us what it completely does, but the fact that Master Mold is outside of the set, the implications thereof, and everything about it. So let's talk about it.
We were just talking about how I'm excited for Master Mold. I love the X-Men cartoon. He was the big thing, the X-Men cartoon. It was weird that we had a X-Men set where you could summon these Sentinels from all these characters, but Master Mold was oddly not present. But now we see that he does exist, and I assume since he's Master Mold, he'll be summoning Sentinels. But we were just talking about how I've never seen them use a character that summons other figures from another set. So since this is going to be a WizKids exclusive, it won't be from the X-Men set. So it would be abnormal for them to call out those specific figures, in which case it'll have to be something like a Sentinel keyworded figure, in which case it means we may be able to summon Cyclops Sentinels, which sounds scary.
Yeah, Cyclops Sentinels is automatically a problem, and then we were sort of talking about that, is when you look at the Sentinel keyword, and there's a lot of cool stuff in the Sentinel keyword. If I'm able to summon Cyclops Sentinel at 50, or even summon in a low dial Stealth Sentinel, just because I'm able to get to that point in the game, it's a little bit ridiculous because you already have the Trask and Bastion that are able to summon in Sentinels, and so you just sort of add that momentum on top of everything else. And for longtime viewers, you know I love me some Master Mold. I am a super Master Mold fan, but again, I think the best way to have it limited is with the standard Sentinels. But you start looking at it's like, well, what about the Tri-Sentinels? What about a couple other options, that you would really want, Master Mold to make, or any future Sentinels that they can make. So, what do you think, Seth?
Well, one question I have is, do we know all of the sets for 2020 at this point? Is it the end of the year? Is it still kind of innocuous?
They've announced the next 3 or 4 sets.
Okay. But there is a slim chance at the end of the year there could be another X-Men set or something like that. So where he's not necessarily convention exclusive.
X-Men has not been listed among the lists for at least probably the next year-ish.
Okay. So more than likely he is a convention exclusive, which
he definitely is.
Which kind of sucks, because then he's going to be limited. Hopefully he'll at least be a purchasable to make it a little more easier.
Yeah.
I would like to see with next year the Blackbird going away, maybe him having a resource dial that you have to do a little more work to get these pieces out with him.
I think the Blackbird has one more year.
Does it?
Because it's kind of exclusive.
Well,
unless they force the retirement because of the cards. Because a little birdie told me that they might early retire all the ID cards.
Well, it would make sense. That would kind of balance the game out.
A fine thing to
do. Right? Kind of done with that era for now.
If they did, and this is my only problem, is if you were done with IDs, and we've seen how successful, so we can talk about this, we've seen how successful just special objects are, like in playing multiples and having, good interaction with it, then I don't think we really need to have Colossal Retaliation if we're going to have IDs. Because now we have this whole huge battle of, okay, are we going to now have a restriction on how many Colossal Retaliators we can have on a team? Because what were we using ID cards to solve? Colossal Retaliation problems.
Yeah.
Didn't they come out first?
The ID cards?
Yeah.
ID cards were before, actually no, I think They
No.
came out the same.
No,
They came
No,
out.
you're right. They did
Because
come
we
out.
had
Because
the
I've hated those for a lot longer than the Retaliators.
we had the Avengers ones.
Yeah, you're right. And then when we got the Justice League ones, we got Colossal.
Now we'll still
No,
have
the
some.
Colossals came in that was the Mighty Thor. With the Carnage.
Yeah.
That was the first Colossal Retaliator.
Colossal Retaliator. Yeah.
Now we still have some ID cards that will still be
No,
around.
it
We
wasn't.
have all of the villain cards.
No.
You're thinking they might
wipe
force even
everything.
the ones that just came out in the last year.
Yeah, I think if they did that,
I could see that being a bad deal because people have worked pretty hard sometimes to get those.
Yeah, good riddance or trash.
Well, I agree with you personally, but we talked about it for a long time.
Right, I'm not-
They shouldn't. You shouldn't be able to use the people that you call in to have all their powers and everything. We've talked about it for a long
Right,
time.
right.
That if you call someone, it should be about their inspiration or what's the DC villain version?
oh, the intimidation.
Intimidation, and that the person that comes in just uses their stats and can do like a move and attack, but not using their powers. That would make more sense. It would.
Yeah, for the
Not
past 4
make-
years or so, I thought of a lot of different ways they could nerf them.
Yeah.
They haven't.
No, they haven't, and they're not going to. Why would they? It doesn't affect them.
They made them cheaper and made more of them.
Well, okay, so like when we look at that, and in Phoenix Nest, there's constantly this debate of how will they ever get rid of Colossal Retaliator? Sorry, not get. Will they ever get rid of ID cards? And the idea is no, because now there's characters that are good because there's an ID card,
Sure.
whereas these characters are never getting played. Like no one's ever playing Rusty. As good as Asgardian Storm is, I haven't seen teams built around playing Asgardian Storm on main force.
What are you guys? So I'm not really involved with you guys. Are you guys? So this last X-Men set came out, which gave us a lot of low point retaliators that could be called in. Are you guys dealing with that much?
Well, that's the issue is that the ID cards with the low point retaliators allows me to start looking at teams I never looked at before. Seriously, like Star Trek. I did my due diligence. Wakanda is not there. Like I wanted Wakanda so bad, but
yeah, you've tried it for a long time.
yeah, like Wakanda is like B plus.
It's
Sure.
not meta, but they made them fun.
Yeah,
They're-
they are. They're enjoyable.
There, some of it. I want to take them to Worlds and win.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying they're not perfect, but
But yeah, the problem that comes in is a lot of teams that were on the cusp of being good, they have like all the team mechanics and everything but a Colossal Retaliator. And so then you look at that and you're like, aha, I have an ID card to be my Retaliator. So it pushes like some of those into the open, like Star Trek. Like Star Trek is a very good theme that can be competitive, but they didn't have a Retaliator. Now they have IDs, which allows them to have retaliators, like multiple retaliators. Because you can play Magneto Retaliator, Phoenix Retaliator, Storm Retaliator. Like you can play a Iceman. You can have 2 Iceman Retaliators if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Not just playing 100-point Iceman.
This is dumb to me. Can I please come?
Yeah, no
Thanks,
problem.
buddy.
It's sharing is caring and all that other jazz. But when all is said and done, that was one of the few things that the newest X-Men set I felt helped open up with the two most troublesome mechanics. ID
But
cards
at
and
least
retaliators.
spread those troublesome mechanics to a larger group of people.
Correct. So even I like Ninja Turtles as from an amusement standpoint.
Sure.
But those token turtles are boss. Like just imagine
Little 50-point arcade token one.
the arcade token ones. Like just imagine, playing a couple of TMNT ally teams and then it's just like, yeah, I had the token turtles and now I'm gonna summon in a Retaliator Storm and she just wrecked your day.
How would it alter the situation if those teams couldn't use Retaliators because there's no ID cards, but also the other teams couldn't use Retaliators because there weren't Retaliators?
And so, okay, let's look at it. I think in that situation, those Fast Forces turtles, they automatically move up in the game.
But I mean, overall, would you say that would help the problem or hurt the problem?
A bit of both. So there's some teams that I feel really move the bar forward because they have access to retail, but they also have access to everything. So Avengers, X-Men, if they have access to everything. But when you start talking about cosmic doesn't exist as we look at cosmic today. Cosmic sort of starts to warp in a different direction. And they're not spamming +6, +7, +8. They are a solid crack team of +4 to +6 max. And I see like those cosmic teams coming out. We see Mystical playing way differently. Definitely with the Wendigo problem. Wendigo being 15 points. You don't see monster teams. You do not, well, let me phrase that. You could see something like Wales, but Wales isn't as threatening when there is no retail.
Yeah.
I hate the Wendigos now too.
I have 2.
And this is for anybody who cares, is that I have a huge problem. This is a running theme across all of these issues, is things that are just low points and punch way out of their weight class. For me, it ruins the game. I understand for meta people, it's just a component. But they are just, I hate it.
Wendigos, and then we'll come back to you, Seth, like your thoughts on Wendigos. Like, my problem with Wendigos right now, and I recorded a whole show about Wendigos, and I didn't put it up because I went off on a tangent for the first 10 minutes of the show. But my main problem with Wendigos are you made them so that Colossal Retaliator, your balancing Colossal Retaliator, which is Iceman, cannot swing on him. And I think that was the major problem with Wendigo. Is Wendigo should have been a Colossal. It should have had Colossal Indifference. Mm-hmm. And should have been able to retaliate. And if you played Wendigo as standard, it would get all this other crazy stuff. But
he oddly wouldn't even need to retaliate, because doesn't he get like a free attack?
He gets a free attack on somebody that's has damage dealt based off of an attack or something.
Right. Well, he gives them a token, a bloody token or something along those lines, which means so he can just, as opposed to even retaliating, like he should not have retaliation. They can keep mostly the same as he is, because if you can just move him into position, then he can free attack and heal up. Now he's got to stop click. It's too much stuff.
Or even could say at 15 points, Wendigo cannot attack a character that does not have a wounded token.
Sure.
So automatically right there, it makes it so that I can't have Wendigo go and attack, give a wounded token, and then pop off. Someone else has to shoot the character first. Otherwise, Wendigo is just sort of impotent sitting there, or punch another character first. And that's the problem, is like, Wendigo can do too much for so many low amounts of points, from plus theme to your map roll, plus it can block, plus it can taxi. Since it's giant, it won't get punched by Colossals due to Colossal Indifference. It's just too much stuff that it can do, plus it can heal up for 15 points.
He's another one of those examples of things we were talking about earlier, where I really hate the the multi-point figure splits. They seem to do a really bad... They give them everything at the low points in so many figures. Like, example would be Wendigo, is you can play him at 15 or you can play him at 300. So, which would win in a fight? A 300-point Wendigo or 20 15-point Wendigos? However many fit. The 300-point doesn't have a chance, because those guys are so overpowered. They get plus 20 to map roll. Take those if you take those low point guys, compare them to the big guys, and just multiply out how many you get and all the things you get for having just the physical fact of having multiple people, all the things you get for them, that will make it evident that they're just skewing everything towards the low points.
Yeah, they do the same thing like with the headmasters, or like we've talked about quite a bit. Cyclops Sentinel.
Yeah, the Headmasters, the Cyclops Sentinels. The worst example I've seen so far is Bastion, the big Bastion.
No, Bastion is awesome.
He's awesome. But the problem is, if you look at his 100-point dial, and then look at his 300-point dial, his 2 and 300-point dials, the difference between his 100-point and his 200-point dial is that his 100-point dial has like 3 more clicks on the end of it with Pulse Wave. So they have more health for 100 points. They have more. They have Pulse Wave on those clicks, and then for every 100 points you spend to get the next level up, he's the exact same. His clicks are the exact same. But if you play 3, you get +3 to map roll. They can probability control each other. They can summon up to 3 sentinels per turn. They can leadership each other. They can one of them can mind control the other 2 to have them attack. And he's one of the worst examples. You gain nothing for playing him at 300 points versus Mormon.
And I think where we saw that classically was there were traits based off of the point value that you were playing a character.
Yes.
And they stopped doing that.
Yeah.
Like, I would be willing to say, if I play Wendigo at 15 points, I shouldn't get the healing trait.
Yeah.
Sure.
I shouldn't
Yeah,
get
they
the
should outright lose things. The headmasters, the Wolverine,
Yes.
as everybody uses, that's an example. Like, he shouldn't, at 50 points, they shouldn't get the headmaster trait. Or something.
Yeah, because if you had... Because the headmasters are a great example. If they couldn't use the headmaster trait, you wouldn't have used them as much. Now, I mean, Wolverine is still pretty
Cyclops.
arguable 50 points.
Cyclops.
It's more
Yeah.
that it's evident that if you in either of those cases, if you look at their 150 point characters, there's no incentive whatsoever to play their 150 points. They get almost nothing. They lose multiple things. Like, would you play a 150 point Wolverine or 3 50-point Wolverines that do almost the exact same thing, except they can all perplex each other, they can all leadership each other, they can all X-Men heal each other, they get +3 to map roll. There's no accounting for it. Now, there are some characters where they do that. Like, if I remember right, Exodus, you get different powers when you play him at the higher point. You know, that sort of thing I'm fine with.
And I think the problem that has come in for WizKids and the design team has been, how do we make these magical boosters super crack to everybody and they not ignore the magical boosters? Because when we had the bigger boosters, if you had the duds, you lose more money. You know, if you pulled a Flora Colossal or you pulled a Frost Giant or you pulled a Fire Giant, you're not happy.
As worthless as the Flora Colossal is, I really wish that I could have gathered 30 of those to play a 300-point team that's just the 10-point ones. You're going to get Matt. You pick water. That'd be interesting.
Well, I don't think the Flora Colossals are useless. It's the fact they come back is, I feel like WizKids needs to institute a rule. It's like, are you less than 25 points? So 0 points to 24 points. If you are in that range, you do not count for Theme Team. Sure. If you did that, that would fix a lot of stuff. Because I feel like Friends of Humanity should not count for Theme Team for how dumb they are.
I submit, and this is something I've thought about a lot, and I really feel that this, like, to the point I don't understand why it isn't the case. I feel that Theme Team should just be capped. If you have a Theme Team, you get +3 to map roll, and you move on. Or whatever.
It could be 5.
But because the base roll is a roll that, you know, it's from 2 to 12 and it's weighted towards 7. If somebody has +3 and they roll the average roll of 7, then you need to roll an 11 or better on average just to beat them. If they, as it is right now, it's weird the way they do that. You have a roll that's from 2 to 12, but you can get +12 to it. This is stupid.
Well, and they have a cap on Theme Team props. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah, and that would be easy to keep track of. It would make I really want the map choice to be more dynamic, meaning that some person can't just roll through and be like, I got +8, so tough. You know, that's not that hard to get these days.
Right, and I think you have two issues that come in. So you have team mechanics or team designs that are exclusively a map type based. So I would just say, like, off the top of my head, there's about 3 to 4 core map types. One is the open outdoor map, sort of like your Amok Time-ish maps. What's that map we played on today? It's the open...
The hedge
The outdoor hedge maze.
Well, no. Now, I wouldn't count the hedge maze one. But it's really openish. There's not a lot of terrain. Sort of similar to Amok Time. And then they had the one where it's the rock map where the force field is coming down from Infinity War.
Yeah.
I forgot which one that is. But so you have maps like that. Then you would have what I would argue is the multiple levels of elevation maps where you're trying to screw somebody because they can't traverse elevation. That would be number 2. Number 3 would be indoor blocking. And to keep everything contained. And then the 4th one would be the outdoor blocking. So that your Colossals can shoot out, but to actually get close to them is a lot harder. But those would be like the four main mechanics that I've seen people build plus theme to map so that they can guarantee to get those types of maps. And if you take away massive plus to theme, you see less of those teams that build for a map versus like what we used to have about 12 years ago, which was you would look for the average scope of maps and then whatever team could navigate 9 out of 10, or at this stage it would have to be navigating 20 something maps would be the best team.
That's a fair point, but separately too, like aside from the mechanical standpoint, I also, when I'm sitting across a team of randos who happen to be mystical, you know, and they get like, you know, +8 to map roll or whatever, like you have to wonder, and this bothers me, is why would having more characters make your team more thematic? Just from a logical standpoint. Why is stuff it? Because here's the thing: is the low point characters already are disproportionately advantaged because they have all the benefits of a high point character. They don't have the depth of health, but as far as their function, there seems to be no cost for being a low point character. So in addition to that, they just get guaranteed map if you have enough of them. They have so much advantage in low point stuff.
And I think that's really realistically something like to look at is, and I think the funny thing is we come back to over and over again is like let's balance sort of the lower point elements of the game, because before we can make an argumentation, maybe about like 7 or 8 years ago, it was like here's this big tempo and it just wasted me because it had a resource, and this tempo plus a resource just ran through my team. My only option is to play Book of the Skulls, so that I have some sort of diversity, so I can sort of dogpile this guy. But then you're talking about one guy versus 3 guys. And now we're talking about teams where it's 6v10 or 8v4. Like the number of characters on field are varied, and that's not including like the stuff that you're generating. You know, like the Iron Avengers map bonus is just stupid good.
As a partial fix, I would potentially accept too at least the possibility, like if a person critical misses on a map roll or some equivalent of that, they just lose. You know, I don't like it when there's no chance of winning. Like you just showed it, like, well, we can roll, but we're just wasting our time. I want there to be more. I don't like it to be that methodical. We're just like, built this team. I picked map. Guess which map? The awful one.
The awful one. All right, so let's sort of move forward. Like with the sets this year, which was the best set that you felt this year? What was the worst set this year?
Oh well, what was included? We got the X-Men the animated series,
Rebirth.
Forgot that existed.
And
yeah, a lot of people forgot.
I feel like there was something before that. Something in the Marvel.
Was that Avengers Affinity? Was that this year?
No, Black Panther and Illuminati.
Black Panther. Okay.
It wasn't Battleworld was last year, right?
Battleworld was last year.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Illuminati. I like that set a lot.
Okay, what about you, Seth?
I liked Rebirth. There's a lot of fun pieces in
gosh.
that. It's. I know, like competitively, it's not that great.
There's no credit for taste.
That's fair. That's fair. But there's some fun pieces in that set.
Okay. I'm actually sort of in a weird place because I'm marginally tied between Black Panther and Illuminati and X-Men. Because, like, from a technical perspective, Black Panther and Illuminati, minus my Wakanda bias, was probably one of the most well-defined and designed sets, minus Chase Thanos. That was the only problem that I saw in that entire set.
I had lots of problems with the set, but I also, I mean, I can see them going either way. Meaning, like, and this is something that, well, here's why it's not the X-Men, first of all, because I absolutely love the X-Men. They're like my favorite. But in the X-Men set, it's because it's filled with a bunch of Colossals who are almost universally awesome, and the rest of the set I can pretty much throw in the trash. All the normal figures
Fair enough
are just there. There's a couple that you want to have, but aside from that, I just don't care.
Yeah,
I love the X-Men.
I agree with you, Josh. Like the Batman animated series set, for me personally, was one of my all-time favorite sets, and I'm more of a Marvel guy. Just in the fact that there were so many different levels of characters that were just playable on the villain and the hero side. The chases were kind of cool, and initially everyone was like freaking out that they were going to be super broke and whatever. And they're still around, and they're still kind of a thing,
okay.
but they're not what we were all like. The sky is falling. The sky is falling. Well, it really isn't. And the X-Men, I was like, oh great. Well, they're going to put that much work into this set because that's one of my favorite cartoons growing up, just like Batman was. And then the fact that, like you said, Josh, the Colossals, there's a lot of great ones in there, and there's a lot of fun in there, and everything else, for the most part, after that, is just kind of...
I think in the normal set, I wanted Archangel and Colossus because I think they're cool.
Yeah, and they're just fun.
Yeah, we've
right?
got other ones.
Sabretooth is fun, but...
Yeah,
he's not break. He's not breaking the bank.
But the reason that it stood out so much to me is the thing that I was surprised with Black Panther and the Illuminati was that its CUR set had really competitive pieces.
Yeah.
Even in their commons, they had characters that outright broke the rules, like Voyager, who I think is
Jesus
stupid.
You had to bring her up.
Medusa is stupid. But as opposed to the X-Men set, which has stupid stuff in the Colossals, and then when you go to play a Seal, it's like, which Colossus did you pull? And if it sucks, well, then that's your day. Because it doesn't really matter what the rest of the booster.
Yeah, I give you that mostly. Minus the Jason Wendigar hotness, which...
Right, but
I'm a little late on
There's
that.
always one chase that's like...
I'm late on that party.
Did anybody else think that the chases in X-Men 2 were like... I think they are the most mundane chases I've ever seen. They're the only time where I've seen them make chases that were not only characters that have already been made, they weren't even like special versions of them. They were just, here's some Hellfire.
I don't think they made Jason Wendigar before, but they have made Emma. They haven't... they made Hellfire Gene?
I don't think they have.
No, they've made versions that might have been Madeline Pryor. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. It could have been Madeline Pryor. Yeah.
I didn't play that far back. But.
No, you're talking about
But I just mean generally speaking, it was like the most, nothing against the figures on an individual basis. They were just the most underwhelming theme I've ever seen, I think, in the history of HeroClix.
I'm trying to think about
Because how many people, I'm sure they exist, but even like separately, it's not like Hellfire, anybody's like, oh, I can't wait for the next Hellfire figures. I wonder what they're going to do. Pretty much the same thing as the old ones.
I think actually what's sort of funny is if they made the chases like the Alkalites, I think that would have been a little bit more like, oh, okay. Like, I think that would have had a little bit more of, or even the Shi'ar, if you came back.
The Shi'ar.
Yeah, I mean, because the Dark Phoenix saga, primarily happened in space, like, you don't see any Shi'ar.
Sure, I would have been a fan of them cleaning up some of the... I mean, I guess there's reasons they don't do this too, but maybe they'll do this with convention exclusives, but cleaning up some of the old themes that they couldn't manage, like the Earth X-Men.
Oh, yeah.
Tsar Colossus, or is he president?
Yeah,
Colossus?
Rich Tycoon, Iceman, poor Archangel.
I would have been into that.
Yeah.
Just weird variants. I always like those.
But yeah, they're normal versions. They're not special versions. They're just normal versions of pretty mundane characters.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean they didn't make them well. They did, at least in the case of the one broken guy. But everybody else is... I mean, if they're not good enough to play, and you're not one of the 5 people who like the Hellfire Club particularly, what are you going to do with them?
Agreed.
I mean, the average player, yes. The competitive player, I think Emma will... I've been debating about how much Emma is going to potentially show up.
She has a trait. What is it? It's something stupid.
She makes it so that if you're not within 6 squares, you can't draw a line of fire to any friendly.
Yeah.
Which functionally makes like all of them sort of like a slightly worse version of like Onslaught, but then just gives that to your entire team.
Well, it's like the Indigo Lantern, one of those.
Similar, except a little bit farther out range. Yeah. So Emma's just universal for your entire team, and Jason Wendigar is Brother Voodoo with so many steroids pumped into him.
Well, he's Brother Voodoo and Hawkeye, right?
Brother Voodoo and Hawkeye, yeah. He's Brother Voodoo and Hawkeye put together if they had like a genetic manipulation to make some hipster dude.
But also made them incredibly boring as a figure. Like how do
Nobody's
we
into
do?
his character.
Let's do Hawkeye and Brother Voodoo, except pick the most boring guy.
I hate when they do that though. They make some
What do they
mundane character who's just like nobody's really interested in, but they make him really, really cool.
You don't
like,
like
well,
the
I guess I
Magia
kinda...
Vulture? What are you talking about? Everybody loves that guy.
Yeah.
I never knew when Vulture like teed off of like 100 people. I never saw
Well,
that.
that's what I'm saying. Is it
I had
wasn't
it
the
happen.
Vulture? It was
I've
some
done
other
it.
guy. They're like, hey, this guy, he's Prime. Yeah, whatever. Let's just.
It's fun. When you get it off, it's fun.
Oh gosh.
I feel bad. I'm not doing it ever again, but I had a lot of fun doing that to people.
But yeah, like even with this year, like EarthX, I felt was a good set. I felt that it was a balanced set. And then when Rebirth sort of came, I'm like, all right, the game is going to tone the hell down. And then came Black Panther and Illuminati. It's like I just wasted my money on Rebirth.
Right?
I just wasted my money on Rebirth.
Yeah.
The amazing thing, the surprising thing with the Black Panther and Illuminati is the entire set is oddly high powered, minus the like Infinity Gauntlets. They're like surprisingly, who cares? Even the cubes. Like if you don't have like Kobik, who dares even play the thing?
Kobik or the Red Skull. And I've been
Well,
like,
I mean, if they don't start with it, I'm not playing a 30-point thing and hopefully grab it first.
Yeah.
definitely with the rules now, yeah.
They're priced a little
Yeah, I feel like
out
you're
of the norm.
Even though it may cause balance issues, if you're paying 30 points to an object, it's the option to pay more to start with it or something.
Yeah, at that stage, I agree. The issue I look at Black Panther and Illuminati, since it keeps being this theme we keep looping back to, is the gyms allow for teams that didn't have that one thing to get that one thing and then be like, let's go. Like you're missing Perplex,
That sounds good.
Prob, TK.
It sounds good, except this is what always happens. Is what it does is the teams that did have those things get more. Who doesn't like more Perplex? Who doesn't like more TK? Don't
Fair.
those come from the same object? Who's balancing this game?
The TK and the Perplex is. And the funny thing is, like, all right, if you look back into, like, the 10th anniversary time, we all would pay 50 points for Enchantress for TK and Perplex.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we
Happy
would
to
all...
pay it.
Yeah, we like, done.
Yeah.
Sold. All right, that's what's happening. Now it's like, I could get that for 10 points, and I can attach that onto a more efficient figure.
Not only that, that's not all it does. It does more. It adds another target. It makes it so that So I actually did this one time. I made our friend Jay mad. He was playing a bunch of Namors. He thought it'd be fun, and I played.
Was I here for that one?
Could be. There's so many times. But I played that Black Bolt with his gem, and he happened a running shot, and he rolled a 10 when he hit. All three of them. And so he nuked him, he summoned 3 objects, threw the objects, critical hit with one of those, summoned another object, threw the object. Like, it was a 2-turn wipe for him because of that gem exclusive Black Bolt too. But I mean, it's 10 points. The Perplex, the TK, couldn't that be enough?
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, even when we talk about scaling, like, there are some characters that just exponentially scale with equipment. Like, infinitely scale.
That's always been the case. The Infinity Gauntlet. The more expensive the person you put it on, the more you get out of it.
Yeah. Let's do it. Okay, so... Alright, so worst game elements this year. Worst, or set.
Wrestling.
Oh, shots
Wrestling.
fired!
Wrestling.
Shots fired!
It shouldn't be allowed to mix with regular clicks. I'm sorry. They didn't allow a lot of the older sets, and I get it. They're just trying to push this new product because they have this new partnership. It's garbage. I hate it. I didn't say it's terrible. It's just BS, and it shouldn't be a part of the game.
Brought to you by WWE.
I was just raised to believe that you're not supposed to mix the universes.
We've done that forever too, though.
Actually, I don't mind the WE. I have only one problem with it. WWF, whatever it is. And that's their trait that got shoehorned in. It's not a trait, it's their team ability. Where they you can't just fire range at them more than half the time. I don't understand why they deserve it, but not the Incredible Hulk. I don't understand how you justify it even within the universe, It's just a way to say we're going to force these guys to be competitive despite all logic.
And here's my thought process with that is instead of balancing the game from a game design standpoint and saying we're calming the hell down on high range, and your highest range for a longest while is going to be 8. And if it's 8, you're not doing 5, 6 damage. You're doing like 3 damage. Okay. And making it so that melee has a chance to at least engage. Then you start solving your fundamental problems that we've been arguing about with melee for years, like charge. Why can't charge be like, can't use any objects or anything else, or have like stat modifications that you can move your full movement? Something to make charge competitive.
To me, they've essentially made it competitive just by. I still prefer range for sure, but it's just that because the ranges are so short that.
But the problem also adds in that they are giving him not only that, which is very, very strong, but then their team ability, I can move out to my full movement for free.
For free.
Pick up an object, whatever great object that's out there right now. For not free, but still, I wouldn't have been able to do that all in one turn.
They don't incur as much risk as the other two.
And you can't target me. Yeah. So good for me.
My big problem with the targeting thing is, like, I understand the need for them to kind of do something about it, but it's just this hard, universal, like, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no trick. There's no strategy to figuring out how to shoot them. You just can't shoot them. Go punch them. That's the way the rule's written.
And they're designed to be punched, and they're really hard to be punched. And the sort of the contrast I look at is, outside of most WWE figures, name a comic book character that you would send into melee combat that could actually do a lot of damage to a WWE figure. And the only one I could think of right now is Black Adam. That's actually being used. And he's a prime. And you're going to equip him with specs first. And more than likely, he's going to either ID cannon you ahead of time, or if he does come in there to like land that solid hit, he's going to have specs, hypersonic speed, hit and run out. Or if he does, like, if you're already based with him, he's already going to flurry. And then what makes it worse is, if you give him lit specs, the WWE ring, because I practice against this, Wes, we've practiced too much. The amount of maneuvers that you can see Black Adam do, where he can sidestep and then use nimble, like to get a free 3 squares, and then use his roll and do sidestep and nimble. Like, he can go really far with that.
But to be clear, that's basically because the only reason that Black Adam's even on the list is because he himself breaks sufficient rules that all the other characters abide by that it overcompensates for the other stuff.
Yeah, but he's the only one that's like, I would argue, is a melee-based character.
Yeah.
That's a comic book character right now
He's
that could go back and do something.
Yeah, he's okay, just as a character. Okay.
Yeah. But, I mean, I'm not going to say, like, that She-Hulk from, that one set, she's great. Like, I'm with you. Like, I don't think of any character that I would throw into melee against at same point value to any other WWE figures, and I'm like, there's a chance that this comic book character is going to overcome this.
Yeah, because they're deep dialed.
And I'm fine with them being powerful. It's just the ham-fisted way of handling it. Like, as opposed to making a creative, dynamic power, it's just, your stuff doesn't work. Which stuff? Like half of it,
Well, I mean, they're still open to be pulse waved, right?
No, it's immune to pulse wave. There's no circumstances that you, other than punching them first, there's no circumstances in which you can then shoot them. And if you do shoot them, you can't shoot them again that turn.
So, anyway, I guess, all right, so
It
WWE...
just seemed like an over-the-top addition.
Okay, so for you two, WWE, I think for me, like I sort of stated before, Rebirth, I felt like, minus literally a handful of things, that WizKids stole my money. I felt like they stole my money.
I actually, while complaining about that, I actually Rebirth this still. So that is a relatively minor qualm You know, meaning like I'm annoyed with one aspect of one power, and it's mostly just the way it was handled. But the set overall adds a lot to the game. Hopefully, it'll bring more people in. I like the idea that they are putting thought into the stuff. You know, trying to make it more interesting. It's clear that they could make more interesting powers. They just don't feel like it, I guess.
You just don't feel like it. All right. So, I mean, other than that, I think we've sort of hit a lot of different points with this game. So let's sort of wrap it up. What do you hope in 2020 WizKids does to make the game better? Take something out or put it in, either or.
Well, you brought up the hint, maybe removing ID cards. That would be great. I know they're going to probably bring them back at some point because they like that cash cow. But it'd be nice to have a little break, a little reprieve from that for just a minute, a year or two.
For me, they really need to make it so that a large figure, a tentpole, 200 plus, 300 points, can actually stand up against all the crap that you can make that they make at 50 and 30 and 25 and 15 points. Like the fact that Unimind is basically the only tentpole that is even a challenge, and you look at how stupid, like actually stupid that figure has to be,
It is, yeah.
just for him to almost have a chance is really evident of how bad it's gotten, and it continues to get worse with every set. No one seems to care, but that's what bothered me for years. It is the worst thing about the game is that it's a stat crush where it's almost like they want you to get as many elements onto one team as possible, but I don't see how they would benefit from doing that.
Well, let me interject real quick. I agree with you. One of the things that I know you guys both said you hated Rebirth, but one of the things I liked about Rebirth is that it seemed like they were trying to interject for the first time a little bit of fairness in that you would have cheap 50-point versions of a number of pieces, like Raven, like Robin, Starfire, and they were short dialed.
They did that in the last 3 X-Men sets.
But they weren't really that playable.
Cyclops,
I'm just talking about people. Okay, yes. But for the most part, there were some playable pieces, but they were shorter dialed. So, yes, I can play multiples of these, but if you hit them, they're probably going to die. Where, unfortunately, they went against, and I was like, okay, great, maybe this will be the new trend for a little bit. And so there'll be squishy teams even if they're multiple people. But then they came out with wrestling. And they're short, or they're just as inexpensive almost as Rebirth pieces with almost twice as long a dials, which was just very frustrating.
Rebirth felt like it was designed by somebody else, like almost like the X-Men set, the non-colossal elements of this X-Men set, where I would be fine with them trending towards a mellower style that they're doing, but they don't do that. They randomly do it for a set at a time, and then you get Black Panther and the Illuminati.
Yeah, it goes off the chain.
There doesn't seem to be any trajectory. It almost seems random, which you're going to get.
No consistency.
I think Rebirth is one of those things that was like on the shelf and mostly done and was waiting approval, and it finally got approved because they were going into that phase of DC, and then it was like, oh yeah.
What's your theory? We get about 1 DC set for every 2 to 3. Is that because of some kind of like DC system where it's just a money thing, or is it because DC's stupid and people don't like it as much?
I think it's more of a licensing thing.
Okay.
I definitely think
like if
it's
it
a
costs the
licensing
same as a Marvel set, we'd probably see a more even parity between them. On WizKids.
I think if DC was less in everybody's like Kool-Aid mix, I think it would be a little bit better. Like, I know, like, if you just had a hard rule, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, or any of the Justice League have to get approved, everybody else go have fun, I think DC, we would see more DC. I think DC would be a lot more fun. But I think the fact that Batman, or just pretty much just say the Justice League, that the Justice League characters have to be crafted or in there at every step of the way, it just hamstrings so much.
That genuinely seems to make people happy every time, though. Like, everybody always wants to see what the newest Batman is, what the newest Superman is. Didn't sell that last set, but what was it called?
Again, Dark Knight's Metal was such a disappointment.
Oh, those chases looked so cool and we were all excited about him. And you're right. They really missed them.
They're not meta, but those are almost all entirely interesting and fun.
Red Death is terrible.
I think he's still interesting. He's just overpriced.
Dawnbreaker was going to be my boy.
He was going to be the next.
He was supposed to be the next big thing.
He was never going to be good, and I'll tell you why. Because ultimately, he's like Darwin, where the threat of him existing does as much damage as him existing. There's no reason to actually play him. If people are afraid, people are going to play him. Because if everybody's afraid you're going to play him, and then you play him, he does nothing.
Well, he was decent. Like, there was enough. Like, Murder Machine was also one of those, like, you could have been...
Potential?
You could have had potential, but...
This guy traded.
I did. I traded him right away. I was an idiot. I missed the mark. Barbados, like, he had potential. He's not. No, he's not good. I'm with that.
So, I'll tell you something. Somebody played... And I actually later suspected that this is something that you may have had something to do with, but maybe not. You know Sean.
Yeah.
So he played a team. It was 600 points, something like that. He had Barbados. It was a monster theme team.
Yeah,
so he had,
I remember it.
Oh, from like 2 weeks ago?
Oh, no, not from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So he had that Barbados, and he had a monster theme team with the Captain America.
Oh.
And he gave, he put Nightmare on it. So that,
The new Nightmare.
The new Nightmare.
So they all had the Batman enemy team ability.
Oh!
Yeah.
So 125 point Onslaught was present. And,
Oh, yeah.
It's also 2 Wendigos. Also 2 Proteuses, little 10-point babies.
Oh!
He didn't know they got nerfed until like the 3rd round, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, it's still pretty brutal. Like, either way.
It was terrible.
It was a dark day.
Thankfully, I was gone that day.
Weirdly, I was fine with all of it except the Wendigos. 15
points with a 13 attack.
No. Okay, he shot. So I was playing Battle World Other. So I'm cheesing out with the Perplex.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's a normal team. These guys, they run, they shoot. I only had one ranged person, the Thanos. So he shot the Thanos right off the bat, no problem.
Yeah.
And then I was able to charge in with World Breaker and get what's his name off Nightmare off of that 14 down to 11. So after that, it was fine. It was just that we couldn't stand up against the Wendigos because you have to hit them twice because of their stop click, which means it's just a waste to hit them. All my guys were like focused single target people. I did have Elsa Bloodstone. What's her name? Witch Hunter
Angela?
Yeah, I had +2. I had +2 attack and defense against this whole team. Didn't matter. 14 attack was so much.
14 attack.
Didn't matter at all.
All right. Well.
So what was you didn't give us your element?
I think the thing. If in all honesty, I want there to be characters, not just one. I want there to be characters that just come in and like just kick generic theme teams and give them some sort of disadvantage. I want a character that just does that. It's like
Silver Bullet.
Just say no, not necessarily saying it's just a silver bullet, but you have an ability just called loosely affiliated. It's like the cost of being loosely affiliated. If you if your team is a generic theme team, then you lose. Okay, just say like, hey, -2 to map, or you could say -1 attack as long as this character's on the map.
It would have to be more. What if you did something where, because they have things like this before, where if your opponent chooses map, you can do something. You know, they have characters.
Right, but again, you can forfeit map. I want it to be like, are you playing a generic theme team? Guess what? This is going to suck because I want people to look at the actual main theme teams, and I'm not saying this as a hater because I've played Mystical for Nats and Worlds this year. I've played a crap ton of Robot and all this other stuff. So I'm not one to talk like, yeah, because I'm hurt because of, somebody played blank.
I'm hurt though.
But I think that there needs to be something that just goes out there and says, hey guys, we've done all this love for all your name teams. go out there and really look at them, really play them. And there needs to be characters that, heck, they can be generic theme team characters in themselves. And one thing WizKids had the ability to do and still has the ability to do is they had their own superhero property that they started and never went further after they had that one Green Lantern wannabe guy. They could easily just say, look, we're going to continue and pick that back up. We're going to make this character, and they're going to do this. And then for prize support next Christmas, it's like, boom, you get this. These heroes come out. They're here to save, the day. And they do specific things that they're seeing that, that the holes in the game have been, from the middle of the year. Or big problems that they've seen from, maybe even the World Championships. They may be able to get something like piped out real quick. But I would love to see that. I think one thing that I would definitely want to see as a competitive player is a slightly smaller list of competitive maps so that things can get refined down for our championships, but that's about it.
They need to make maps. So this is one of the issues I've had over the past few years, is they make maps frequently that are too uniform. That ROC one, the Hedge Mage, that was one of the worst ones. Like anything it's just this one thing and that's the whole map. Like it's not dynamic, it's not interesting, it's just this. So when you go to fight somebody, you're like, oh, you're not good with dealing that type of terrain. Here's all of that terrain.
Maps need to be a bit more dynamic, is what you're saying.
Well, it wouldn't matter if they had 20 maps that were all dynamic and interesting, as long as they kept the 3 that were stupid. Because those are the ones people.
Those are the 3s that everybody would play.
Tonight I was playing the Beyonder tonight. I played on I did not choose map at any point. I played the exact same map every time. It was the Star Trek one that was indoors with blocking.
Underground, yeah.
Yeah. Every time my opponent chose that, because why choose the middle ground?
I played on 2 of my 3 games.
Yeah, it's you just go for the top shelf, the dumbest one. That's your map.
Well, even with the maps, I think there needs to be some guidelines on the maps. Like for some of the maps, realistically, there needs to be a maximum percentage of the map that can be blocking. Because when you have maps that are similar to designs of Ryut or Star Trek Underground or the Hedge Maze, except indoors, or like when that quantity of blocking terrain is there, it does stifle most of the gameplay because game design has made this mainly a range centric game. Like there's very little. If you're in this range, it does this, but if you're inside of this range, it does that. Like I don't think there's any powers that work like that. And the only character that we have that actually works like that is Exodus.
Yeah.
And so it makes everything range. So if you're going to say, like, look, I can fully outwit you if you're 4 or more squares away and you're within range, fine. But what happens if I'm in 1 through 3, you don't have time to think as well. Okay, you have to roll a die. If you roll a 1 or 2, your outwit fails. Something like that, where there's some consequence for it.
And that's the biggest thing is, this is with everything across the board. I don't want anything to be, not hardly anything to be methodical. I want everything to have risk and pros and cons. Like when something's just obviously universally beneficial, I hate it. That's why I hate the no range on those guys. There's no consequence.
Perplex is always good.
Oh, that's the thing they need to fix too. Make Perplex a unique modifier. Do it. Lock it in.
Oh gosh, Super Perplexes didn't all of a sudden just become the rage, but yeah, that's it.
It would still be less perplexed than we currently deal with. It's weird. No, this is completely subjective, but like perplexed to me because they originally always put it on Harley Quinn and stuff like that. It's a tweak. It's a modifier. You shouldn't be stacking it. It shouldn't be taking the place of the other 5-6 powers that modify stats. It's just a fill all, and you stack. It's cap it. That would also nerf Unimite. People would love that.
He's on his way.
No, I wouldn't fully nerf Unimite, but
no, I mean to say he would only usefully be able to. He wouldn't be able to double, or he would get the +2, but he wouldn't get +3 from perplexing himself twice. You make it so that there's a number of ways you do this, but you either any use of perplex overwrites a previous or cancels, or you can only have one positive and one negative modifier, on any given stat. And that way, if you want to get +3, you can get +3, but you're going to have to get perplex in something else. You're going to have to get perplex and super strength, or range combat expert. You have to be a little more creative than just putting perplex on all your teams. As many perplex as you can get.
That's the most controversial thing.
Yeah.
I went that's at the beginning.
That's for another time.
Anyway, I need to wrap it up. I'd like to thank you all for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me cosmic snow is radioactive. You don't want any part of it. Good to know. But I won't be in space anytime soon. You can follow me on Twitter. You can find out when the newest show is up. Folks been wondering, what you've been doing. I was like, I recorded episode 301, trashed it, and then the end of school happened. And I had grades and tests. And then I made a completely self-sustaining RPG for my kids. Yes, I did that. So it was rough. Anyway, so that's where my time's been. So I just sort of recuperated the last few days. You can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. If you wish to opine, keep it pithy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Let me know what you think about what heroclix should change for next year. And last but not least, if you want to donate to the show, you can go to startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. There is an eBay link button, not eBay, but PayPal link. Been focused too hard on eBay lately. There's a PayPal button you can click and donate, and everything goes to making the show better. I'd like to thank my two friends for being on the show, Seth and Josh. And remember, like always, we all have to start over sometime.